Apparently, all it takes to get communists, Islamists, and the worst dictators of the world into the White House is simply elect a Republican, and then he'll invite them. He'll talk about how nice guys they are, how rational they are, and he'll defend them from the enemy of the people, free press. Of course, this is something we have seen in the recent press briefing with Mamdani, the new or the mayor-elect still of New York, and Donald Trump, the president of America, where many people were surprised, and I guess even I was, even though I should stop being, because nothing here is really that surprising. Yeah, they talked about how much they have in common, how how both want good for America, both want good for New York, despite the fact that one was calling the other a communist and one was calling the other a fascist. Welcome to the Daily Objective. Today we'll discuss the recent press conference with Zoran Mamdani and Donald Trump. Joining me today is James Valiant, and James, we'll watch clips, so we have more to comment on. But what do you make of the just a general impression when you were watching it?
I myself watched it live and then I watched it again on replay, and neither time was I surprised. I know Trump to be a pragmatist without two ideas to scrape together. Uh, he'll do anything, he'll adjust. He says in the course of this that he's wedded to no principles, in effect, by saying, I've changed my mind. I'm willing to work with him. I want him to succeed. But what it also reveals is the emptiness of the emotionalism of the attack, the tribal attack. When one side says he's a fascist and the other side says he's a communist, which they did. And those were the first two questions right out of the chute. You asked the two New York reporters, one said, asked Trump, well, you just called that guy a communist. And the other one asked Mamdani, you just called that guy a fascist. How does that work here? Those were just emotional buttons that they were pressing. Both of those men really are not, in effect, wedded to the ideals that they state. What they're doing is they're just trying to create an emotion, scare you off by using that word. The truth of the matter is, as we pointed out, Trump is no capitalist. Trump is perfectly happy with what would be normally considered socialist solutions if they're popular now, if they work as far as he can see them working, and that just means satisfying the emotions of as many people as he can to get by politically. So if it's emotionally satisfying to a large enough group of people, this is the essence of pragmatism. It's being unprincipled on principle. It's appealing to the emotions of the biggest group, because what works, according to pragmatism, ultimately it's the emotional satisfaction of the subjective intentions of people. And if you're a friend of democracy and if you're a pragmatist, you really can't be wedded to any ideology. This is boy, talk about the proclamation of the death of ideology. When those two guys can come together, you're a Marxist communist, you're a fascist, you're destroying democracy. And then they come together and say, oh, we can work together. Well, those were just words. That was just an emotional smokescreen I was trying to use to scare you about the other guy. So Mamdani is using Trump to get elected, anti-Trump ideology to get elected. Trump is using words like socialism and communism to scare people, even though he is no consistent friend of capitalism. Well, because he's no consistent friend of capitalism. What? Just to create an emotional atmosphere. That's what pragmatism does. Pragmatism is full-on subjectivism. That is to say, you're going by whatever satisfies the emotions of the voter. And it really doesn't matter the words we use if we scare them and herd them properly emotionally, because that's all we're doing with words, is trying to herd people emotionally. As politicians, that's all they're doing. And you can see the emptiness of big scare words that they use. They don't have real ideology. Now, insofar as Mamdani will be consistent with his ideology, that, because he sort of did outline an ideology much more clearly than Trump has ever outlined an ideology, it will be a failure because it's socialism. It's more consistently socialism. And you'll notice that's what these two guys are really on the spectrum of: degrees of socialism. How much socialism can we, utilize to fix the problems of New York City? So they're really, pragmatist, but deciding the degree of the socialist solution. And there's some people who are scared of that word because it has certain emotional connotations. And then there are some people who are scared of the word fascist more than they are socialist. So I'll do that, use that against Trump to get myself elected mayor because of the emotional connotations. But they don't really mean anything by it. What they'll actually do in office will bear little relationship necessarily to the ideas that they're putting forth. Mamdani is, I think, a Fabian socialist. I think he said, "I'm a democratic socialist." Yeah, so every step that we move, and for the last century, America's been moving in a socialist direction. The left is perfectly happy, right? So long as we keep moving in that direction, right? It sort of lets the mask slip when you actually use the word socialism because the word is scary to some people. But what is its meaning? I mean, it really isn't epistemological. It's a big philosophical word. It comes down to how you treat your ideas, your concepts. These people don't give real meaning to their concepts. Freedom really isn't a reality in Trump's mind. Economic freedom, capitalism. No, 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 no. That's not at all it. Both of them are pragmatists who believe in going with the democratic herd. That is to say, they're populists. They're populist pragmatists at the end of the day. One is a little more brave in terms of articulating what might be regarded as an ideology. But notice, he's perfectly willing to work with Trump. Um, that's the hallmark of a pragmatist. And so, can you predict what will happen? Can I predict what Mamdani will do? Can I predict how Trump will react to it? No. To do that, you'd have to wet your finger and put your finger in the air to know what the political, breezes of the moment will be, and it's the political breeze of the moment that will, of course, be governing them, because what they want is power. Both of them, what they want is power, and to do so, they'll use words in a way they think will emotionally nudge people in their direction. That's all that concepts really mean to these people, is that there's not a reality of the need for freedom, of the relationship between freedom and prosperity, what we call capitalism. No principled understanding of that on the part of Trump. And as I say, Mamdani is happy to make any compromise so long as it pushes us further in the direction toward socialism, in a general way. So I'll give Mamdani that little bit of credit. He's a little bit more wedded to his ideals. Both of these men ultimately don't really aren't really wedded to their ideas, and their concepts really were just designed to emotionally scare people. The
Yeah,
concepts they didn't use, the words they used, were simply designed, not concepts, but words used to emotionally herd as many people as they can politically.
yeah, and I'm wondering if Trump wants a certain successor since his sons are sort of useless when it comes to politics. Somebody like Mamdani, the way he almost tried to groom him, right? Like Trump was saying, when somebody takes office, they'll change their things. Come to the dark side of pragmatism. Come to sort of my side of, I changed when I took office. But I want to go a little bit more the way Trump talks about specifically the sort of what Mamdani wants in New York. But we have a lot of super chats, so let me run through them. We have a £10 super chat from PC. Thank you so much. He says, "Hi James, my theory: Trump is trying to make him think he likes him after all, but he does not really divide the left, etc." I'm not really sure what he means divide the left. Something to remember is Mamdani wasn't outsider. He was the Democratic nominee for the mayor of New York. If Cuomo won, that would be like a division for the Democratic Party because an outside, sort of an outsider, somebody that stepped out of the Democrats went in and won. But no, this was the Democratic victory. This was the party. This was the win of the Democratic Party. Just new kind in New York. We have a super chat from Roland. Thank you so much for 5 Swiss francs. He says, criticizing the president's friend? Why you guys are such a leftivists? I mean, yeah, now it's now we're good with Mamdani. Before election, it was he's a communist, he's evil.
We're the
Fox. Yeah, Fox spent
he
however.
meets with Mamdani, and we're the ableftivists, right? No, we're committed to our principles. We understand what a principle is. We understand what a concept is. Those little words that make up the principles that we hold in our head. We understand the connection to reality. And so there's nothing that will budge us from our principles, much less show contempt for them and spit on them, as both of these men did. They both betrayed any sense of principle on each side. Trump, we're used to it from. He's much more pragmatist. It was actually a little more surprising coming from Mamdani. But you see, Mamdani ends up legitimizing Trump in order to be perceived as less of a radical. Trump legitimizes Mamdani in an effort to be seen as more pragmatic still. I can work with anybody. And I want health care and, more housing and cheap stuff. And
We also have a super chat from Kalahri X. Thank you so much for 25. I think that's Polish zloty. Thank you so much. He says Trump is a fascist, Mamdani is a communist. Horseshoe theory, they are both collectivists. And yeah, I want to make a point about that as well. I want to go into that. We have so much to go through. We also have a super chat from Bull Moose. Thank you so much for 15 shekels. He sent it on email because he cannot send it on YouTube. He says, looks like a Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact Part 2 Electric Boogaloo in the making. Yeah, this is
we're
something
just
we've been
noticing
saying before the show.
Before Daniel and I came on air, that's exactly the comparison that we were making. It may be a little extreme a comparison, but come on, the communists and the Nazis worked together. I mean, on a smaller scale, they're both collectivists, which is what the previous questioner said. Yeah, if anything, they both are in the generalized collectivist camp. And so, are they perfectly willing to get together to drive out any truly liberal notion? Well, that's exactly what Weimar Germany faced at the end. Communists would ally with Nazis in order to push out the more liberal or moderate factions. That is precisely what happened. And that's what pragmatism is at the end of the day, a kind of collectivism. Because what decides things? People's emotions. And it's, the people's emotions, the important group's emotions, the American people, they'll say, and they'll cite, Trump will congratulate Mamdani just on a Democratic victory. I mean, if he really believed that socialism was evil, he would say how horrible that people to that extent were taken in by socialism. But he didn't. He said, we can work together. We'll find solutions. This guy will change. I've changed. Change is the constant. It's a haircut.
Well, okay, let me jump here because I have to have something to say. Because like this reaction, the way he, I congratulate him, this would have been something that would be great for Trump about 8 years ago if he acted like that, congratulated Biden in 2021 on his victory instead, of trying to overturn the election. If this was the way Trump was acting with the Democrats for most of his term, that would be okay. But no, it's the opposite. He acts with the Democrats, like you said, like the Nazis and the communists in Weimar Germany did with the liberals. It's like, these people are evil. We have to destroy this because they had the same goal. They had to destroy the liberal regime so either the Nazis or communists took over. That's why communists in Nazi Germany didn't want to work with liberals because even the left liberals, because it would mean the Weimar regime that was the enemy of the communists. They needed to overturn the liberal democratic order. And that is, I don't know if Trump has the ideology to really support it, but if you look at his people, Steve Bannon, people around him, they definitely want to overturn, they definitely want to change the American constitutional order. And who is the better friend for overturning the American constitutional order than the communists? The Democrats are not going to do it. The moderate Democrats, or at least not in like a near future, not in sort of relative, maybe over, hundreds of years or decades, but not right now. Maybe like through like a slow erosion, but not through like an ideological, like we want to destroy it. That's what the communists are for. That's what the Islamists are for. And that's what Trump's friends seem to be. He wants to ally themselves with the communists, like the Nazi Germany had, or like the Nazis had a very beneficial friend coming from the communists, coming from Stalin, coming from Soviet Union.
Right. And it's so consistent with what you see sometimes Trump just saying out loud in a disturbing way. He's no friend of the American Constitution, the original American Constitution. He barely understands it. He barely understands it. His respect for you ask him if something is unconstitutional, he says, I don't know. He takes an oath to uphold the Constitution. And this document that he's taken an oath to uphold, you ask him a question about it. I don't know whether I have the power to do it. Let's find out, you know. And so whether it's the filibuster that he's perfectly happy to join the Democrats in getting rid of to make democracy work more efficiently, because that's what we really need is more democracy to be, less hindered by these old American institutions, that put obstacles there, or free speech, frankly. He'll say the FCC license for ABC should be pulled. That's really disturbing. So you ask Mr. Trump about, American institutions that are in support of liberty. He doesn't know the value of them. He doesn't care. It's not even on his radar screen. What he wants are solutions that'll emotionally satisfy New Yorkers. On that, he and Mamdani are on all fours together.
Yeah,
It's hardly surprising to see them, have a love fest in the Oval Office.
yeah, and I want to go into that, but just quickly, we have a super chat from Bonnie for 99 cents American dollar. Thank you so much. And a super chat from PC. Thank you so much for 499 pounds. He says, James, at least Mamdani can never run for president. Natural born clause. He is not eligible due to the same as Schwarzenegger could never run. Well, Mamdani has what, like 30, 40 years, 50 years even, like of lifespan of when he can like run for president. I'm sure by the time he gets older, there's many provisions we can come up with. Again, like, you can change a constitution, right?
It's
and
hard
if you have 50, yeah, but if you have 50
you
years,
need 2/3 of each House of Congress and 3/4 of each state legislature, 3/4 of the states to go.
maybe they'll make a compromise. Trump can run for a third term, and we allow we make it
We
as
could have
one amendment.
Another White House summit to decide on how we can agree upon this, and greasing the wheels of democracy so that democracy can really fully take charge of our economy. That, my friends, is socialism/fascism. It is collectivism when it comes to politics and economics. And on that general point, these two men agree.
Now let's look at one clip I wanted to show.
Will he bring it back greater than ever before? Which is, I guarantee, that's his wish. I think he wants to make it greater than ever before. And if he can, we'll be out there cheering. I'll be cheering for him. Okay? Thank you very much, everybody.
So
hearty handshake there.
Yeah, and it was specific.
What's good for New York? Now that's the thing. If I call you a fascist or if I call you a communist, I'm telling you, your goals are not what I do not share your goals. Your vision for what New York City is not my vision. Trump can't muster that. His words are just words when he says the guy's a communist. He says his heart is in the right place. And his heart
or your methods, right? Because like the focus on the goals, like Mamdani wants to have like a great New York. I mean, what like that's why I'm thinking like Trump is like drinking his own Kool-Aid. Because if you remember the government shutdown, the longest shutdown in American history, what was the Trump's and like a Republican policy on Democrats is they want to give healthcare to illegal aliens. That was like what they were saying is the reason why there is a government shutdown. Completely made up. Like it's like you could have a problem with what Democrats want, which it was a problem. They wanted extension to ACA tax credits, so I think that's a problem. But like completely mischaracterizing. But what I'm wondering is if Trump actually believes that, if he actually believes that that's what they want, because like that would be like evil. That would be like kind of problematic thing to like shut down the government for, right? So if he actually believes that, and then he sees somebody like Mamdani, oh look, like I talked to him, he just wants what's good for New York. I talked to Mussolini, he just wanted to make the trains run on time, so he's a good guy. But it's the methods, right? Like what does he like? The goals kind of matter, but not really. What is your ideological goal? What do you want the spirit of New York to be? And the spirit of New York that Mamdani wants is socialism. Even if we don't want to call it communism, it's socialism. He wants to more price controls in the terms of rent controls, government involved in like production of food, in distribution of food, free stuff, free buses, free everybody, everything free. Like that's what he wants. But Trump doesn't have a problem with that because Mamdani wants what is good for New York.
Yeah. Oh, no, no, no. Look, Trump said during the course of the press conference, a lot of Bernie Sanders voted. Bernie Sanders, the open socialist member of the Senate, right? A lot of Bernie Sanders voters voted for me because, after all, we agree about things. I mean, Bernie
And
agreed
he's
with me
proud
about
about it.
tariffs. Yeah, Bernie, after all, Bernie agreed with me about tariffs. And so, yeah, a lot of the Bernie bros voted for me. And I can totally understand that.
I mean, imagine saying that, like, from the other side. A lot of Nazis voted for me. Am I not good because of it? Because I got Nazis to vote for me? No, that's a problem. If people, again, Bernie Sanders, when it comes to presidential elections, I think he's probably the most on the left. I'm not sure. Like, technically, Kamala Harris could actually be, in some terms, more on the left.
Yeah, exactly.
But definitely, like, Bernie Sanders is viewed as, like, the most left-wing candidate in American presidential elections. And those voters vote for you instead of voting for Joe Biden or moderate Democrats. And you don't view that as a problem. You don't view that as, like, that's kind of yucky. I don't want those people. Those people shouldn't vote for me. They should either abstain from election or vote for some communist nut job. But they shouldn't vote for me. You shouldn't be happy about that.
Yeah. If at one time the Republican Party represented the anti-communist, anti-socialist wing of American thought, Trump is Trump's GOP is not that anymore. That GOP does not exist anymore. The Republican Party that opposed socialism in principle, communism in principle. Now, Trump has demonstrated he'll use that as a scare word. He's a Marxist, he's a communist, is what he really is, a communist. He's not just a socialist before the election. But then, of course, there's nothing in substance that Mamdani might do that we would disagree with. It's not the, if he has socialist solutions that work, we're going to work with him and I want him to succeed. It's absolutely, it's disconnecting. It's as if your words, and I literally mean it like this, your words have no actual meaning. They're only emotional buttons that you press, right? But the sad reality is that Trump is no advocate of capitalism. He really doesn't oppose socialism in principle. They ended the press conference by mutually praising Franklin Delano Roosevelt, the guy who, more than any other president in our history, started us down the road towards the welfare state. Real socialist, even Marxist solutions like retirement insurance, Social Security, things like that. It was FDR that started America down the path towards socialist solutions in retirement insurance, healthcare, welfare state. And Trump boasted he founded a portrait of FDR, and boy, the Mamdani wanted to have a photograph, and I hope that picture turns out and we can both agree. Now, Trump might believe, yeah, FDR saved capitalism, like so many muddle-headed people think. But Mamdani may actually realize, no, 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 that was a step down the road toward the ultimate goal that I want to achieve. And so, in effect, they both agree, right, that capitalism sucks. That's the one thing they agree to, right? It's a question of maybe how fast we move in a socialist direction. Yeah, but we can negotiate that. Well, is that not a matter of negotiation? We both agree that we want more government and government to satisfy the emotional needs of as many voters in our democracy as possible. That's really all that matters to either of them. They do not use words with precise meaning. They use them as emotional buttons to press with people. So all this fascist, communist, that was a bunch of hot air from both of them.
We have a super chat from PC for £199. Thank you so much. He says they won't change that law. I think specifically talking about naturalized citizens running or naturalized, like people who haven't been born in America, not being able to run for office. But again, why would that be like, we cannot allow that, right? Especially if people start to talk about democracy. And it's not even like, I'm not even necessary that, that should be like something that is like a requirement that you have to be, if you are a citizen, as far as I'm concerned, you should be able to. So like, I don't think that's like the worst thing that would ever happen. Although with things like that, it's like the motivations that matter. It's like, for me right now, anybody who wants to change the constitution, nobody has the right motivation to do it. Right?
Right.
It's like, so that's why, no, I
Well,
don't.
like you point out,
Yeah.
they'll have some deal where if you let me run for a third term, we'll change that one. We'll change the bit about a natural-born citizen. I'm more in favor of term limits than I am with the natural-born citizen bit, which really was a relic of the fact that America was the product of a revolution. We didn't want Brits from England to be able to come over and run for office. That was literally, if you think about it, the natural-born citizen bit was aimed against Englishmen, which is really odd if you think about it. But it's a relic of our revolutionary origin. So I agree with you on the natural-born citizen bit, but I'm just pointing out the practical difficulty of changing that. And the third term business for Trump, both of those would be very hard to accomplish. And frankly, if the midterms don't go well for the Republicans, Trump, I think, will face the fate of all second term presidents after an unsuccessful second midterm, becoming a lame duck. Republicans will be looking elsewhere. Trump's power and influence will start eroding. And I'm sure that's what he fears most of all. And so that is what he's trying to do, still work with people, even on the extreme end of, you would think, based on the words they used, the extreme end of the opposite of Republicans, not the Republican Party under Trump. The Republican Party under Trump has no commitment to the Constitution or to capitalism.
By the way, I think Razi wanted to join our bet. He said that Trump will run for a third term, so maybe we can incorporate him into the bet.
So far, I'm still willing to go with my bet, but who knows? That's why the fact that we could make the bet is disturbing enough.
But let's take a look at one more clip that I found interesting. We won't play the full thing, I think, but let's play a little bit.
And you did a piece in all the 9 months around the world. I would like to ask Mr. Mamdani, you've accused the U.S. government of committing genocide in Gaza while President Trump was working on peace. Why that?
I've spoken about the Israeli government committing genocide, and I've spoken about our government funding it. And I shared with the president in our meeting about the concern that many New Yorkers have of wanting their tax dollars to go towards the benefit of New Yorkers and their ability to afford basic dignity.
Okay, we don't have to play the whole thing, but look
at the look on Trump's face.
Yeah, it's look. Yeah, I agree.
No. And picking that one, I'm glad you picked that clip, because that alone shows the moral outrage of what just happened there. The fact that Mamdani can say that Israel is engaged in a genocide,
and not only that, America is supporting genocide.
That. Trump has no problem meeting with a guy who says that he's complicit in genocide. Now, that's outrageous. It's outrageous to give him any sanction. It's outrageous to give him any platform. Donald Trump there betrayed Israel. He betrayed civilization, frankly. But he also does, the point is, the guy who just accused him of aiding and abetting in genocide, he's perfectly happy to shake. What a warm, friendly handshake we had. Oh, we'll work together. I want you to succeed. He really wants what's best. No, a guy who can say that Israel is engaged in genocide does not want what is best for New York, the U.S., Israel, or humanity. Okay? Just right there. It is despicable, the moral sanction that Donald Trump just gave the guy. And just look at the dumb look on his face. You were just accused of participating in crimes against humanity, in effect, and you're morally sanctioning that guy, saying he's okay, we can work together. No, that's not the way that works. The evil can only win, Mr. Trump, when you do that. Can only win. That probably was the single most despicable thing. It was revealing the other stuff. Oh, he'll change, I change. We're all kind of pragmatists. Yeah. We all love FDR. Yeah. The accusations we threw at each other, communist, fascist, they really don't mean anything at the end of the day. No. But where it really comes down to true evil, right there, Trump is perfectly willing to morally sanction a guy who's saying that what Israel did in valid self-defense is a genocide and accuses him of aiding and abetting that genocide. If morality has any real, I mean, see, most people, they think of their morality in religious terms. It has nothing to do with life on earth, happiness and success here on earth, which we objectivists believe that's the importance of morality. That's why we would never consider violating a moral principle. It would be, in effect, suicidal, self-destructive, self-harm. That's not how Trump views moral principles. He doesn't have moral principles. A guy can accuse him of aiding and abetting in genocide. That has no meaning to him. That's just a bunch of hot air apparently coming out, because words, you know, they really don't, like fascism or communism. They're just words, you know. They have no real meaning. They have no real life or death import to human life on earth. And so we can just use them, like the emotional buttons that I described them as. Now, that's the way politicians tend to be, but I've never seen a more despicable spectacle of that. I don't care. You can call me an aider and abetter in genocide, and I'll shake your hand and say you're a great guy and you want what's best for New York. No, our values do not overlap, if you can say that. We fundamentally disagree about morality, the role of government, individual rights, what self-defense is, what genocide is. No, we fundamentally disagree on important life and death moral issues. No, not to them. That is more despicable than anything I can. It's hard really to describe, because these people are confessing that they are detached from their moral ideals, that they have no moral ideas, that they're actually detached. The words they use are utterly detached from reality. That's what they're confessing.
Razi says, I said he'll either run or just not leave office. I mean, yeah, that's what's problematic about my idea that he would run for a third term. Because, technically he cannot do it, right? But if you asked me if, in 2021, he would use this, niche legal theory that simply, you submit a fake slate of electors where you have different electoral college than actually was supposed it to be, and then you just change that to elect Trump instead of electing Biden. I wouldn't have guessed that, right? So I have no idea what they'll come up with in for the upcoming, what kind of thing they'll try to reason with, because people are now defending 2021, right? So
Trump's term of office ends at noon on the 20th day of January in 2029. That is the Constitution. It couldn't be more specific. You cannot be elected more than twice president. And his current term ends on noon on the 20th day of January, in 2029. That's that. And it's really hard to get around that. And I think that there is enough of America, I hope, because if there isn't, we're really toast. Maybe I am just engaged in wishful thinking. Maybe that's why I'm taking the side of the bet that I am, Daniel.
If I would, be honest, I think you have good odds. Realistically, I should be asking for better odds than 50-50 on the idea that Trump would would still be in office after January 20th, right? I think you still have so odds on that. So, but maybe
I hope so.
Yeah.
For God's sakes, if we don't, then we can just rip up so much of our Constitution. If you're paid subscriber at a certain level, of course. But if you're a paid subscriber to the Ayn Rand Center UK, you can listen to my discussion of the United States Constitution. And we've seen how many aspects of the Constitution have simply been stricken out. The words have been, magic markered over and no longer have any real meaning or import, or they've altered it. But it would be far worse if something so clear and so specific as the term limits on a president and the time and day of the termination of his term in office are overlooked. Then you may as well just throw the whole thing in the garbage can. It's, constitutions in the long run can't protect you anyway. It really is people's cultural acceptance of the ideas that underlie the Constitution that can only help, maintain that constitutional order in the long run. And we've certainly, that has eroded, especially over the last century, that has eroded sadly and dramatically, as you can hear from both sides of the political spectrum these days. But if we reach that point of ignoring the specifics in the Constitution that could not be more clear, America's toast. And I fear that civilization similarly might be toast as a result.
And just earlier, I think somebody said like something like, why should Trump think different if he stayed quiet? He probably agrees. And that's the problem. He shouldn't agree that there is a genocide going on in Gaza. I mean, that's and I don't know even what is worse, like if the idea that he believes there is a genocide is going on, or the idea that American president believes there is a genocide going on and is actively supporting it. I have no idea what even is wrong of this. If you have like American president thinking he supports genocide, or American president thinking that what Israel is doing is genocide. Because again, what happens when America has to defend America, when the American president has to get into war? Will it mean that it just won't defend America?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, Trump really he was morally obliged at that moment when he was asked about, when the reporter asked Mamdani about, you said you would use the international arrest warrant to arrest Netanyahu should he come to New York City for a United Nations meeting. That's the moment for Mr. Trump to say, even if we were signatories to that treaty, which we are not, it would be exclusive federal jurisdiction to handle such matters. New York City lacks any legal authority to enforce any ruling from the International Court of Justice or any other such international body. New York City lacks that jurisdiction, just for the record. Moreover, we are not signatories to that court, the treaty that creates that court. Moreover, we fundamentally disagree with it. That was we disagree with their view of genocide. We disagree with their view of what constitutes genocide. We disagree that Israel has ever engaged in genocide. It was at that moment that Mr. Trump needed to give an answer like that. What Mamdani said about arresting Netanyahu will never come to be. New York cannot enforce this law. It's not a law that we even internationally recognize. And if it were, it would be exclusive jurisdiction of the federal government. But more important than any of those legal matters, on which Mamdani is dramatically mistaken, we do not agree that it's genocide. Israel has been not going far enough in defending itself, frankly. That's what Mr. Trump should have said right there, instead of just letting it go by. No big deal. You can call someone a genocidal monster who should be arrested, and Mr. Trump will smile and say, oh, your heart's in the right place, and have a warm, pat your hand as he's shaking your hand. Friendly, chatty conversation. Disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. The moral compass of Mr. Trump, well, there is no moral compass to Mr. Trump that I can somehow detect. If it got him in trouble, in hot water with his voters, like maybe the release of the Epstein files, something totally ridiculous like that, only then and only then would it matter to him. It's his perception, it's the public perception of him that really matters to Trump. He doesn't know a moral principle. He wouldn't recognize one if it bit him on the rear end.
Well, but what you said, those are big words that Trump would have to use. And talking about big words, a word that I have never heard from Trump before that he used in this press conference, rational. And he used it to describe Mamdani. I don't think I've ever heard Trump to use. I didn't know that's in his vocabulary. Maybe it's like, you know how you have those calendars, which is like a word of the week that you have to use to like expand your vocabulary. Maybe Trump is using that. And out of all people, he used it to describe Mamdani.
Rational. That I can tell you, those are two irrational human beings there. Two men who have no respect for the meaning of words. Let's start there, in their mutual irrationality. And ultimately, they're both pragmatists, to different degrees, but both of them are ultimately pragmatists. So both of them are, by their own behavior and words here, irrational. So I don't think that this is an accident that for the first time Trump has discovered the word rational. No, he knows precisely how irrational his behavior is, I think at some level. And he's saying that this guy who I just called a communist is rational. Shows you how little the word communist, the accusation was as it came out of his mouth. He could say, on the one hand, he's perfectly he's irrational, just irrational human being, and on the other hand, you should be scared because he's a communist. Well, that's how much words mean to him. That's how irrational he is. If being rational means anything, it means words having meaning and stable, consistent meanings reference to reality. They do not. I fear to a large extent they do not for either of these guys. But for Trump, a total betrayal of everything that is America. That's all I can say. A jihadist, Marxist, if those words had any meaning, if those words had any meaning when the Republicans were attacking Mamdani, then Trump has betrayed any essence of what the opposite would be. Individual rights, Americanism, freedom, reason.
So the near American future doesn't look that bright. Luckily, there's going to be a weekend of rationality, at least for a bit, coming next year, October 17 and 18 in Austin, Texas. The Irreplaceable Spark Conference 2 will be happening. So there is tickets are available at the super early bird pricing. So you get the best prices right now. So I recommend people who either were at the first conference and would like to come again to purchase them now, and people who weren't, I definitely recommend checking it out. You can find out more on the website objectivism.co.uk, and separately people should sign up for our mailing list, aynrandcenter.co.uk/newsletter, where if you sign up for the mailing list, whatever is happening with the conference or the channel or the organization, that's the quickest and best way to find out. Simply go to the website and you can sign up for our mailing list. With that, James, do you have any closing thoughts on the recent meeting and generally what the relation between Mamdani and Trump will look like?
Well, I'll just ask my Republican friends out there, if you were surprised, if you were shocked, if you were in some way, if there's some way you did find this unsettling, if you find there to be something unsettling with the degree of Trump's moral sanctioning of this guy, then I ask you to reconsider Mr. Trump. And I ask you to pan back and think about what Mr. Trump has done to what's left of your party, the Republican Party. I'd ask you to check your premises, to use the famous phrase from Ayn Rand. What do these people mean when they use words? What is the reality behind the concepts that these people are articulating, or are they just empty words? What is Mr. Trump's commitment to capitalism? What in the long run, my Republican friends, will be more destructive of capitalism, the Mamdanis or the Trumps who morally sanction it and can't at this point see the difference or blur the difference between socialism and business as usual? No, my Republican friends, I want you to take a good hard look at this moment. If you're trying to figure out what was going on there politically, who was playing who, if you're surprised by it, check your premises.
We have a super chat from Jonathan. Thank you so much. $1.99. Thank you. And I would say send a message to the former anti-Trumpers, people like Ben Shapiro. Was this what you wanted? Now that Nick Fuentes is becoming part of the Republican Party, Donald Trump hasn't spoken out against Nick Fuentes so far, and people like J.D. Vance are defending both Nick Fuentes and Tucker Carlson, the Vice President of the United States. And on the other side, being happy with Mamdani, being all chummy. I think chummy was the many articles, many news sites actually used to describe this meeting. So is this what you wanted when you decided to not be anti-Trump anymore for the sake of fighting the left? Well, that's on your consciousness to decide. James?
Well, I just think about how you, even if you vote for Mr. Trump, think how you defend him. Think of how you characterize him. I'm not going to quibble over who voted for who at this point. I'm just going to say, wait a minute here. You know, it is in the look. You know, you might think that communist or fascist are too harsh in this context, but that's what they do. They get along, and that getting along and that working together is precisely what's destroying America.
So something I've seen, and I'm not sure how real it is. Apparently, like the Bushes were talking about taking back the Republican Party from Trump. On a separate news, Marjorie Taylor Greene is retiring from the House prematurely, like in half of her term. And there is an idea of Marjorie Taylor Greene being the successor of the Republican Party. So yeah, fun. Anyway. We might talk about that later or next week. Thank you, James, for joining me today. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We'll be back tomorrow with another episode of The Daily Objective. Until then, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.